Welcome to One Door Studios Week 12 update. We're approaching $300,000 raised from almost 450 investors. Whether you're an investor or just curious, you're considered family in the journey of Calculated. Today we hear from Laura Knight Keating, the narrator of Calculated's audiobook, and the unusual experience she had while reading the novel for the first time. All right, welcome back everybody to One Door Studios Weekly Update. Today we have with us Laura Knight Keating. She is the audiobook narrator for Calculated and also going to be the audiobook narrator for the future books in the trilogy. Welcome, Laura. Nice to have you with us.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
So when I was researching you today, I discovered that you're not only a audiobook narrator, but you're also an actress.
I am. I mean, I think most audiobook narrators probably started out or certainly, do theater and other forms of acting. I think it would be pretty hard to just jump into narrating audiobooks without any background in theater or performing arts. But yeah, so I used to do a lot more stage. I still do a little bit of TV and film from time to time, but audiobooks is really my favorite thing to do because I'm also a children and young adult book nerd. So it's kind of a perfect mix.
Oh, that's cool. So when I was looking at the stuff you've acted in, I saw there's an Amazon Prime series called Red Oaks.
Oh yeah,
I
did like one episode of
one episode.
So, yeah.
You were a nurse, right?
I was. It was. I watched the first season of that. I think it has a second season, but it's set in the 80s, which was hilarious to me because I grew up in the 80s. And so, I mean, the hair, just looking around the set was just enough to send me back in time. It was pretty funny.
So this book, Calculated, it has some Chinese in it. And so I'm a Chinese speaker and so is...
Are you really?
Yeah. And so is
Congratulations.
And so I was thinking, I wonder how she handled the Chinese words, because I think Americans botch the Chinese words more than anybody else. Like whenever I hear my mother, when she said, Guangzhou, China, she's like Guangzhou or, Zhang Xiaoping, so I was like,
it's not something you can jump into lightly.
No. So how did you do with the Chinese? Did you have to research it a little bit beforehand?
Yeah. So the producers of the audiobook will, they help me a lot with anything that I don't know how to pronounce. They do a lot of research. They talk to the author who helps them with names and pronunciations of foreign language and stuff like that. And then they send it back to me in phonetic form. So I basically start from the phonetic alphabet, and which is something you learn in acting school. And so just having those sounds, once I get the sounds in my mouth, then it's pretty easy for me to sound it out, like I can hear it then. But I find the one thing that's hard about that is that when you're looking at something in phonetics versus looking at it on the page, it's hard to get the rhythm. So I think that's something that I sometimes have to go over a number of times, is that I can pronounce each individual piece, but to make it actually sound real, you kind of have to
practice,
move it around in the mouth a little bit.
Yeah, and I think Chinese is one of those languages which is just so utterly opposite of English. I mean, I lived in China for a few years, and it's just like the upside down. It's 180 degrees of everything that's American.
It is. The one thing that's helpful though is, and this is true of all languages, and for any audiobook that I've ever worked on where I've had to work in with a different language, is that there are usually key sounds in every language that are kind of, like if you look at like the name Bagong, for instance, like even though on paper that's spelled B-O, in Chinese that is like an aw sound.
That's right.
And so once you kind of start to hear those key switches, then it becomes a little bit easier to wrap your brain around it. Like I said, Recorded Books, who's the audiobook producer, they're very, very, they take their research very seriously. So if I had mispronounced any of those words, believe you me, I would have been retaking them until I got it right.
Well, I started listening to the audiobook today just to hear your voice. And the cool thing about it was, our protagonist is 15 at the beginning of the story. Is that right, Nova? 15 years old?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and listening to your voice, like, I'm convinced that this girl is a teenager. So that was pretty cool.
It is my blessing, I think, in the audiobook world, because I am nowhere near 15, obviously, but I have a child voice, and when I'm narrating, this is something that constantly surprises engineers, or my husband who's engineering for me this whole year that we've been recording at home, is I don't know what it is, like maybe I never quite got past that teenage kind of mindset, but I just kind of understand the rhythms of their speech, and my voice just kind of falls in that range naturally. So I don't have to put on anything to sound like a teenage girl, basically.
Yeah, well, you did a fantastic job at that. It was excellent.
What's harder for me is the older characters, like to sound more mature. Like I can sound basically 19 and under effortlessly, and then anything above that, I'm like, I must sound more, grown up now. So that's hard. That's a little bit harder for me.
Laura, one thing we've noticed is everyone, I'd say actually probably everyone that we've heard of who read this book so far has had a pretty positive experience with their first read. And we just want to know, what was your experience the first time you read the book?
So it's funny because this is a problem for me often in my preparation for audiobooks, but Calculated definitely was one of those ones where, like, when I first approach an audiobook, I need to approach it from a research standpoint. So my first read is usually fairly generic, and I'm sort of really skimming it more for words and pronunciation so that I can send that off. And then I go back and I give it a real read. And what happened to me when I was reading Calculated for the first time is that I would be reading it and realize that I hadn't written anything down for like 30 pages. Cause I'm like, I've got to know what's going to happen. I got to know. So then I'd be like, oh no, like I've just missed the whole point of what I'm trying to do, is to like see if there are any Chinese words in here that I don't know how to pronounce, or names or whatever. But I was so caught up in the story that I had to go back over it to like do my actual initial work, because I would get so sucked in, and I just like I had to know what was going to happen next. And anyway, so yes, that's exactly what happened to me.
Imagine that, getting caught up in Calculated.
John, Stephen, did you guys, as producers, have the same exact experience?
Absolutely. Could not put the book down.
You guys are making my day. Thank you.
Oh, Nova, you have to
made our day.
I mean, of course, as a creative, you wish that you could look at your own work with fresh eyes, like to experience what other people experience. And unfortunately, as a writer, you'll never have that chance. So, but we'll just tell you that from our perspective, the book is bonkers, amazing. I mean,
yeah.
One of the things that I like that really sucked me in and like it kept me on tenterhooks like the whole time is, and it's a quality in writing that has attracted me since I was a kid. And it's one where the character has like this, it's like a deep sadness or some sort of history that you're not privy to it yet. And that eventually it's got to be revealed, but the author is revealing it in these like tiny little spoonfuls. And you're just like desperate to find out, like, why are they behaving like this? What is making them do this? And in Calculated, there were like 5 people who had that like situation where you needed to know like what it was, like what was this thing that happened to them? Why were they like this? And it really took the whole book to get the information that you were craving from the minute you met the people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even Madam, like, you knew she had to have something totally wacky about her to get, that. And then when I found out about her at the end, and I don't want to ruin it for anybody, so I'm not going to say it out loud. It was just amazing. Anyway, so that was one of the reasons why I could not couldn't put it down.
You know, I almost guessed that was going to be the case, where you try to skim it, but you were unable to skim it. And you found yourself completely steeped in the middle of it.
So I've been, if there's a mystery in this conversation too, that I've been anxious to find the reveal on. And Nova said that she had someone in mind that she really wanted to be the reader of the book. And she was kind of hot after you. And when she got you, she was very excited and so forth. And
oh my God, that is so kind of you. Made my day.
I haven't, but the how she discovered you, or what book she heard you reading or whatever, and then how she went through the process in order to get you on to read the book would be a little fascinating story. Can you give us, maybe Nova, could you give us some insight into that? And maybe Laura, you can tell us how you were contacted for the book read.
Sure.
Well, on our case, we were given a couple choices, and then my agent and I heard her sample, and we're like, this is really good. And and then my agent has worked with you before, actually. I'm not sure if she's worked with you before, but Jessica Day George is also her.
Yes, but I just did Jessica's book right after your book, actually.
Okay. So my agent was the one who knew about you, and she was like, she's really good. We want her. And so, so it was actually my agent who was like, we want this lady. And I was like, when we both listened to you together, and we were like, yeah, that's fun.
So, for our viewers probably hear us talking so excited about this book all the time. And so if you haven't gotten the book yet, you can go on Amazon and get Calculated by Nova McBee. And a reason to be excited, because this amazing book is being turned into an amazing film really soon. There you go, Nova.
I do have the digital version on my phone.
Well, so I'm gonna get the audiobook once, so I can listen to the rest of it. I only listened to the sample, Laura.
The clip, yeah.
And I liked it. So, because I want to hear the story again. I've read it through once, but it's time for me to do it again. But Laura, thank you so much for joining us today on this interview. It's been our total honor to have you with us. And
thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's going to make an amazing movie, because the story is like, you can literally picture it like the whole time. So it's really going to just jump off the screen.
Yeah,
we believe it.
We do believe it. We're currently looking for a really, really great screenwriter right now. We've been, John's been really heading that process up. We've been watching a lot of series and movies and studying people, and
we're spying.
Yes, exactly. You're employing some of the techniques you learned from the book.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Laura. We really appreciate it. And
no, it's so great seeing you again. It's always fun having you on, and I'm glad to see you both, Laura and you, together. you the writer of the words, and Laura the mouthpiece for every character. It's a big job, and from an acting standpoint, it's got to be a lot of fun. But you do it so well.
Thank you.
So thanks. It's been awesome.
Really nice to meet all of you.
That's it for today, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon for the next One Door Studios update.